PHAM, Vietnam. SINH served with the Republic of Vietnam Navy, enlisting at the age of 17 in 1969 and serving to the end of the war, April 30th, 1975. SINH served on Gunship 229 LSSL, landing ship support large, a 250-ton amphibious assault ship with a crew of 71. I interviewed SINH and Lam Bui the same time, July 5th, 2007 in Phoenix, Arizona, after our Vietnam Remembered premiere. And folks, they're both gone. I lost SINH in 2012 and Lam passed away last year. But folks, their stories live on through this documentary series. So I would ask you to help circulate these stories throughout the South Vietnamese communities, throughout those who served in Vietnam. We've got these two stories. Let's get them out there, folks. Let's get them out there. And if you by chance are South Vietnamese and you served in the military in Vietnam, contact me. I want to do a story featuring South Vietnamese soldiers, sailors, Marines, airborne, Rangers. Let's get the stories out, folks. John Wynn, another thank you to you for sponsoring this story. God bless you, sir, and your dedication to our country and your love for our Vietnam vets, making it possible for others to hear and to see this story. Folks, I'd like to encourage you also to help sponsor one of these many stories I've got in my archives. I've done 20 years of work here, a labor of love, an incredible journey. I've been serving my God and my country through the lens of my camera, and I need your help to get these stories out. So one by one, please help me. I would greatly appreciate it. There's information in the video description and in the comment section. So, okay, folks, sit back and enjoy. Subscribe to this channel. Share this video. Let's get this out there, folks. Let's get this out there. This is freedom, fighting for our freedoms and why we're free. And I love both of these men. I know they're both looking down on us today. So, God bless you. Thank you for watching. With the Navy?
I'm with the Republic of Vietnam Navy.
Okay, is there a company, battalion? How are you assigned? What group were you with?
Well, I'd been in several divisions. Well, anyway, I came in I enlisted in 1969 and stayed till the last seconds of the war, which is April 30th, 1975. And I've been training and been in different divisions, but my last unit is that the Gunship 229 that I just showed you.
So, and how old are you? Did you say when you went? You were drafted? You say?
Actually, I'm proud of the fact that I was volunteer. Mm-hmm. The reason I volunteer because I do not want to be drafted, because when you're drafted, meaning that you will be assigned to wherever that they put you through. But I had some reason that I want to enlisted a few months before I got drafted. So I went to Navy when I was just a few months short of 18 years old.
Now you were born in Vietnam?
I was born in Hue. It was central Vietnam.
Can you just give me a little history of Vietnam and why the Americans became involved in Vietnam?
Well, the history of Vietnam is too long, because Vietnam was had almost 5,000 years of history, so it's kind of hard. But let me do a real short version of it. That is, where I was born used to be a capital of the country, the imperial capital of country, that's Hue. And the Nguyen dynasty was the last imperial dynasty in Hue, and they ranged for about 500 years. And when the country was divided in 1954, due to the ideologies of the North being support the communism and the South to support the capitalism, and that's how the war started, and that's how the American got involved, because Americans supported South Vietnam in fighting for their democracy, and that's what it was about.
Now, growing up in Vietnam, were you very aware of what was happening and And did you consider the north part of the country as your enemy at that time, or how did you think about that?
Well, growing up, of course, being a young children, that you don't have a whole lot of political opinions until you're a little bit older, and when you start to realize the condition of the country, what they're going through, then yes, especially in 1968, most of American known as popular term is the Tet Offensive, where my whole country, including my hometown, was took over by the communist force during a New Year truce. And as you all know, that the Hue got suffer a lot of damages and casualties and all that. And my father is among one of the people that got buried alive.
How many children in your family?
I have now 3 sisters and 2 brothers, so a total of 6 is still alive.
And at the time in Vietnam, were you like some of the young men in this country? You knew someday you might be fighting for your country? Did you feel like that?
Yes. Well, actually, that is the part why why myself enlisted, because we know that we will be drafted because of the order to a certain age, of course 18, then you'll be drafted, and that is grown up, like I say, about 13, 14, that age, we already realizing what's going on, the war going, and very, very intense, very massive there.
So you were 18 years old, you enlisted?
Yes, in the Vietnamese Navy.
And so how did you work with the Americans? Or were you first of all, what I hear of the RVNs or the RVNs, is that Republic of Vietnam, America?
Right, right.
What does the A stand for? Is it AVRN or just RVN? They call them the RVN, so I don't know if there's an A.
Yeah, actually the RVN is, that is another term. It is missed perceptions there, because Vietnam do have all the branches. It's almost like a copycat of the United States Armed Forces. So ARVN, yes, it did stand for the Army, but when they refer to ARVN, it's not really correct, because we do have all their branches.
And so you were allies with the United States, fighting with the United. Were there other Navy Americans with you, or are you just your own group of Vietnamese?
For a period of time, I was working with the American. In fact, after the training in the small boat there, I was the first 9 Vietnamese personnel that arrived in a division that was run by the American Navy, and it was in Nha Trang Harbor Defense.
So what type of patrols or involvement or engagements did you have with did you fight the Viet Cong, the North Vietnamese Army, or who were you fighting?
I'm trying to find a term that I don't think there are any different between Viet Cong or the North Vietnamese. But I think most of the Americans realize that the North Vietnamese has come from the north and the Viet Cong has come from the south. That is not really true.
Well, you tell me.
Well, I would say that going back to history a little bit here, and when the country divided, and the north that recruit a lot of young men and women to go to the north, and then starting in 1960, they just start to come down to attack the south, and so to us, they're all the same. They come from the North Vietnamese forces. So whether I think Americans misunderstand that is that the Viet Cong is totally come from kind of uprisings, liberations, if you will, from the South. And yes, they were from the South, but they all recruited to the North and then start to invade in Vietnam the early 60s or late 50s.
Because they call them the Viet Cong.
They call them Viet Cong.
And I hear stories like they're out in the field working during the day, and at night they're in their black pajamas shooting the Americans. Is that the kind of guerrilla tactics that they used, or is that correct? Or?
Yes, that part of it, and that you can. You also know that some of them that doing the attacking or something is not really their. The people that it maybe the villagers in there was forced to do that by the few people in the back.
Now, I hear comments like the North Vietnamese, the regular army, hardcore or whatever, they were well trained troops, and the Viet Cong weren't, and the Viet Cong were made up of young men or old men, or how do you see that? How was that actually?
I think that is. Partly correct, because again when the people that start to go back, and of course they will recruit the local villagers and people in the South. So I'm telling the truth. I really don't know much about their trainings and things like that, because it actually they are not existed to my knowledge. It would be some secret places in the border of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, and so on. But as growing up, I never seen or know for sure that there are any training for them. But if any training, it definitely have to come from the North.
So what kind of combat did you get into? Did you get into combat with the Navy? I mean, what kind of things did you do?
Yes, because after the division would or stay in with the American for about a year. Then I went on to a special training and become a petty officer, and after that I was a skipper in the American column. In Vietnamese we call them boat captain. So I was the skipper of a small patrol boat, and that was way over there by the DMZ, and I was there for about a little bit over 3 years before transferred to this gunship. And we encounter the enemy a couple of times, not at bad at the Army and Marines that facing, but there was a couple of times that but most of the time we were just on our boat and they were on the land, so not a very much of danger compared to our friends that have to face on the ground.
Did you have any involvement with the helicopters over there at all for any reason? Or?
Not really. Yeah, just boat.
And you had a patrol boat. Did you go up the Mekong Delta, or what body of water were you on?
I was in north, in the DMZ, near the DMZ, right by the coast and right by their rivers, right immediate north there. Just.
What did you think about the film the other night?
The film I'd really appreciate, first of all, also for you and to put the effort and do all that, because I do have a lot of American friends that was in veterans, and they really appreciate that because you all know, and the reason why you're doing that, because the Vietnam veteran was not really treated right when they sacrificed for their own country, for other countries, and they're not even rightly recognized their effort or their sacrifice. So myself, I'm really support the freedom and the democracy of Vietnam, and I really appreciate the American soldier involved in Vietnam. So that the film was great. I do have one wish though, because all the documentary films and literatures and things like that I've seen in this country since we became here, it very rarely or almost none exist that never mentioned anything about the Vietnamese Navy or Vietnamese Armed Forces in there. So I wish that the first time I ever see a documentation film that was last year sometime on the Channel 8, the PBS, they mentioned about Tet Offensive, and they did mention something about there was some unit of the Vietnamese Marines fighting along with the Americans, and that was a very surprise to me because before that I never heard of it. It's just like the American are the only forces fighting over there.
Well, that's one reason why we're talking.
Right.
And I'll talk with Lom and anybody else that I can talk to maybe in the next coming months, because I want your perspective.
Right.
I want that. So my second film will have some of this. So
right.
This is an opportunity for you to tell me about the other fighting forces in Vietnam other than the Americans. So you guys were fighting. Were there other countries fighting in Vietnam?
I know there was definitely some Australians. I know that the South Korea. I know there was a unit of Thais, and I'm not sure the British involved in there, but yeah, there was several other countries.
There were Canadians, weren't there, from Canada?
I believe so, yes.
What would you like to say about your involvement in Vietnam along with the Americans? Because you're saying a lot of documentaries, you don't see this. What can you tell me that needs to be included in a film?
Well, definitely in my time, the service, I was trained by the American, and I was stationed with the American for a year and a half. And on the patrol, we have a small boat with 5-6 personnel, normally about 3 American and 2 Vietnamese in there. And at least myself, they were doing that for a year or over a year. And I know that there were a lot of them in other units and in other branches of the service as well. So that's definitely there. And you asked me a question earlier about how do I get involved with the American. I just kind of just happened because I happened to learn English when I was in high school. So when after the basic training, I just kind of put there, I guess, and because I believe that we have a little bit background in the English speaking.
Tell me about the South Vietnamese people. What are they like back during Vietnam? I mean, they value life. They welcome the Americans in their country to fight and were supportive of the Americans.
Yes, I'm speaking for myself and the people that I know. That there was some resistance there because, of course, people, it's like over here in the anti-war, people got propaganda from the north and say, "Oh, these is not really they're not here to help us. They're here to take our country," because we have the experience with the invasion, the colonial from the French, still too early, too fresh. The people, I think, the North using that propaganda to tell the general public that they are here to invade our countries and things like that. But most of the people, they do appreciate it because they do know a little bit about the North Vietnamese communists. They do know the massive killing during the 40s and 50s by the Viet Cong in the North, and that's I do believe in myself. I really value the time, the freedom that we had there, and we strongly believe in that. Everybody should have the freedom, and that's why we fight for, and that's why we appreciate the American was there helping us.
How about today in Vietnam? Is the country still divided?
No, the country is, they're not divided geographically like before the 1975. April 30th of 75 is officially the communists took over the country and everything is united. However, the perception, the thinking, I think it is still, there's a lot of resistance, and the general public who were at one time that might like the North because they were somehow thinking that American was there just to invade the country or something. Now they started to realize that the freedom that they had. And there was one famous legend after the, not shortly after the communists took the country, they just said that if the light poles know how to walk, they will leave the country.
But at the time during Vietnam, the South and the North were divided, and the North Vietnamese, I guess what I'm trying to get is how the people internally in the country felt about each other. I mean, was it pretty obvious that the North was for communism, the South wanted a democracy? I mean, who was the ruler of the South Vietnamese people at that time?
At that time, I think the latest one was President Thieu. Before that, the first was the President Diem. So the Republic of Vietnam is a two era there. But to directly answer your question is like in 1972 when the North Vietnamese came over the DMZ and overwhelmed the Quan Thi, the northernmost part of the South of Vietnam. Thousands of people that fled in their hometown. And as you understand the history of Vietnam, the Vietnamese never leave country, and they have some economic problems, hungers and things like that in the past, but they always stayed there. They always value the hometown. They do believe that where they come from, they want to be dying at the place or burying at the place with their ancestors and things like that. So they'll never want to leave. But in 1972, in Quan Thi, thousands of people left the country because the communists came over. And what the communists did is just killing every soul that fled in the Highway 1 to the southern country. And 1975, when the communists took over, that starting out about a couple 100,000, but then up until like 1989, there was reported about 2 million people left the country, and very large number of that. Some estimate that half of the people who try to leave the country were killed by their bad seas and by their communists and so on and so forth. So you know how I think they voted by their feet.
Yeah. Wow.
And go back a little bit further in 1954, when after the Geneva Convention, the country is divided to North and South. And of course, over 1 million people left their hometown in North and to migrate to the South.
So you've been in this country since '75, right?
Correct. Correct.
Have you been back to Vietnam much?
I've been back a couple times. Yes, I took my family back there to see, because in my family, I'm the only one here. Yep.
Wow. Well, it seems like you've done well for yourself.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm.
Are you the president of the South Vietnamese community?
Yes, currently I am. Yes.
How many people are a part of that group?
The group, we have the Vietnamese community in Arizona have a unique situation that we were a organization that it consists of about 15 other associations, groups. So quite large, I would say.
Are there a lot of Vietnamese that fought in Vietnam? Maybe 10, 20? Maybe are there a lot of men that fought there?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, you mean in Arizona here and Phoenix here? Well, yes,
So
I would.
I'd like to talk to more of them.
Right.
I want to talk with On Win sometime. I hope to come back again, and maybe we can arrange to talk to more, because I think it's important. Did some of these men fight with the soldiers too, or were they all Navy, or did some fight with the Army? Or?
No, we have. I know that there is a group called the former servicemen of South Vietnamese Armed Forces here consists of about 100 to over 100 members, and most of them, I mean, all of them were in the service, and from any branches, like Lum was in the Rangers, and there's a couple of friends in the Delta Forces. I have some friends that were pilots, and there's quite a few of them that I know that was helicopter pilots.
Yeah. Well, somehow we've got to get the word out to them, because I'm working on this second film, and I'd like to have more of you in this film. So you've seen mine, and you are talking to me today, so I don't know how we can get the message out, but we could talk about that.
I'm really regret that it happened right at this holiday, and like I told you before, some of them feel they don't have enough English to express themselves. Some of them that really do want to get involved, but they have pre-arrangements and things like that.
That's why after today we'll talk, and we'll make some more of this happen. But,
sure.
Tell me about the casualties, people that were killed, the South Vietnamese. Were there a lot of casualties like the Americans?
So there were a lot of them. There's period of time like I really see a lot of casualty was in 1971 at, I believe all the Americans also know Lam Son 719. Of course, in the heated summer 1972. I was in 1972. I was supporting personnel for the what do you call a Marine, the Vietnamese Marine, for 2 months. There was fighting in Quang Tri, and I was the personnel that for the operations. Supporter, which means if they need any supporting from the ships, from the Navy side, then I would be the one to operation contact. An American, actually, there were when the Geneva Conventions treaty talking started in what, in 1971, and I think that all the sea fires by that time. So American really heavy fighting, I would say, is about 1965, 66 to about 1971. There were still some American troops there, but they start withdrawing. And so by the mid of 72, most of the American troops were already gone. But the battles, the last part of the battle was very massive. And of course, their first part of 1972, there was some advisor groups, American advisor groups still stay back there. But starting in 1973, there's no more American fighting over there. And you can, if you recall, in 1972, in summer of 1970, they call I believe the American called the Easter Offensive, if I'm not. I think that's the term they use. Anyway, starting in summer of 1972, several provinces of Vietnam was taken by the North forces. And the most massive fighting was in the DMZ, right by the Quang Tri there. And it took, I can't remember, it's almost 2 months to regain the control of that. And of course, to fight in that magnitude, there's a lot of casualties there. But Quang Tri is the only one out of several hotspots.
Did you lose any friends or wounded or killed in Vietnam?
Besides my father, yes, I have a lot of friends and relatives.
Did you say your father was killed in the war?
In Tet Offensive, yes.
Can you tell me what happened and where he was?
He was working for the South Vietnamese government as the local village there. And of course, the communists, that's really put a black mark on the infrastructures. Then 1910 offensive, they just captured him and took him away. And later, we found out that he, among the people that got buried. Until this time, it's kind of unofficial number, but some estimated a couple thousand, some estimated 10,000. I think the reason for that difference is because there are 3 years after the situation, they still discover, I do believe that in early 1972, there was a discovery of a mass grave of over 500 skeletons in there. So the numbers kind of keep changing, so, but I think the last count was estimated 10,000 people.
So did you refer to the enemy as the communists or as the NBA, or what did you call the enemy?
We call the Viet Cong or communists.
Okay.
Yes.
And did they have uniforms?
I never see a uniforms one yet. I mean, whatever they wear at that time, so it's most of it that is, yeah.
Did you have a hate for those people?
As soldier, no, I don't. I mean, if we were facing out there, and then we'd probably pull the trigger and be killed. But I really don't hate the people, because they was born in there and they were ordered by the top people, the ruler of their part of country. So I don't think I hate them, but we have to do what we have to do. But I don't think they have the same feeling for us, though, because after the war ended, probably 500,000 Vietnamese, South Vietnam soldiers that has spent many years in what they call the re-education camp, but in actuality was a in concentration camp. And I know someone who spent like 17 years. My boat captain spent 8.5 years, and I have friends. My cousin spent 5.5 years, and I have lots of friends that spent hardships many years in there.
You said about 1 million North Vietnamese were killed in the war?
That's what I'd seen in the, yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
That is a big number, yes.
So the Americans killed a lot of them, and you killed a lot of them? I mean...
when you say you mean the South Vietnamese, right. Myself, like I say, I'm very fortunate. I engaged in the war a couple of times, but we are too far from each other. We don't know, they shooting us and we shooting them. So that's about it. Yeah.
And you said you lost some relatives and family members in the war?
Yes, I have some close friends and relatives, and quite a few.
Where are they buried? The ones that were killed?
I don't know some of them. They probably they're going back to their hometowns and things like that. But some of them I know that were buried in the military cemetery, and that is another sad story. That Viet Cong, after taking the country, they not just retaliated the live people, that also retaliated. Until this day, they still retaliated against the dead people. Like they dig the grave, then scoop it up, or even if they're still there, they limit the family visitations or access to it, and that sort of thing.
So you considered the enemy, you called them the Viet Cong, and these were the South, people from the South? That you considered?
Well, I think there's no differences in term like in the American, or there's no separation there. The Viet Cong, I mean all of those, the communist people, yes.
So, okay. Because there's different names, like you say, the Americans.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Were you fighting for your country? Were you fighting for your flag? Why were you? What were your thoughts during Vietnam? Like the Americans, they were supposed to be fighting for their country, their flag, and to help free the South Vietnamese. What were you fighting for?
I believe that I do like the freedom, and we do. My own opinion, I fight for the democracy and the freedom of the country.
And the North didn't have the freedom? The North was communist?
Correct.
And they were being controlled by the Russians, or just?
I think during the war in Vietnam, the North was supported by both China and Russia, and of course all the little communist countries. They're in their brotherhoods, they say.
I've known a few Vietnamese people, but they don't want to talk about Vietnam. Why do you think that is? Or maybe they do want to talk, or do you find people want to talk about what happened in Vietnam, or they'd rather forget it?
The people I know that most of them do want to talk about it. Yeah, and there's sometimes they can't talk about it because until this day, they still being labeled as the traitors, even if maybe sometime officially they. Let me go back a little bit. In 1975, when we left, the communists labeled us as a traitor, as a treason, as a at the gangsters and prostitutes and those people that are bad people that left with the enemies to get fed and be enslaved by the Americans and so on. And so when they know or the communists collapsed in 1989, and they know that we are the people that will have some money, and we have much better off economically, and then they know that they need those money supports, and so they changed the tone a little bit. They called us they're 1,000 miles away guts of Vietnams and so on and so forth. But as long as like today, if you're going back to Vietnam, if you keep your mouth shut and keep smiling and spending money, then there's nothing going to happen to you. But if you have any thinking of being against their rulers and then of course you're going to be in jails, and just incidents happen just until recently here, you know.
Was there a part of the film the other night that you liked better than another part? Was there a part that you liked more?
Yeah, no, actually, I do. Like I say, I wish that in these documentation films that my wish is to include the fighting of the Vietnamese, South Vietnam forces and people in there too, because we also have police, the government's office, and things. Those people also spend years in concentration camps because they are part of the South Vietnam government. So we do need to, we do have a lot of other special forces, the police, and people that work in the government offices that are also part of South Vietnam, that were the enemy of the North. So we should, and they were there fighting until the last day of the war. So,
did many people come to the film showing the other night from your community? Were there many people there?
Yes,
I met a few of them.
Yes, we have over a dozen there. There are some people that I really surprised that they were there, because they really expressed their feeling that it appreciates what you're doing there. Yeah.
What would you say to the American soldiers that fought in Vietnam? What would your message be to the American Vietnam veterans?
There's only one word that I can say to them, is really grateful for your sacrifice. And I don't care what the politicians doing. As a soldier, we do things by order, and our order is to maintain and restore the freedom and democracy, not just for Vietnam, but Vietnam at that time called the frontier of the fighting for the democracy. And our mission is stop the expansions of communism to Asia, Southeast Asia. And I do believe that we accomplished that. The communists stopped at Vietnam in 1975, even if they took the country, but the expansion of communism stopped there. And of course, 10 years later, 12 years later, they collapsed, the whole communist ideology.
How did you feel the other night being around all those Vietnam veterans, and did you talk to any of them?
I've been I've been active with some of the Vietnam veteran, especially in state here. We have a organization called In-Country Vietnam, and we've been very close friends with them for many, many years now. And those people that really, we are really appreciative for what they did for our country and what they've been doing for our societies here. Because after being as civilians, I speak to myself, and I think that American generals are very generous. They are very humane, very helpful. You know, being there is no place in this earth that we can find that nicer people like that. And so even if these people they don't like the Vietnam War and they might be against Vietnam, but when we came here, they really greeted us with the open arms. So that's just my feeling to the American.
In this country, Vietnam sometimes is referred to as an unpopular war. Have you ever heard that?
I heard that, and to some of the American perception was that Vietnam was kind of the name of the war is not a name of the country, so that's just totally wrong. There's one thing I want to say that going back to my thinking about including Vietnam in Vietnamese in the war, not just the soldiers, not just the armed forces, but all the people of the South Vietnam. They actually fighting for their freedom and democracy. I have a friend that lived in Tucson, and when they came here in 1975, their daughter went to grade school in Tucson, and the daughter realized that they're teaching the history of the Vietnam War in the classes. And one thing that she really, as a very young grade school kid, and she realized that something there is really, really wrong, because the literature mentioned that the Vietnam War was ended in 1972. And she really against that, and she protested that and went to the principal and said, this is not right, because my father spent many years after fighting after the 1972, and we continue to fight until the last efforts in April 30th in 75. So this literature is not correct and is not supposed to be teaching, and they stopped teaching that for at least 4 years after that, till the day that she left the school. So I think that is one thing that we should let the general public know, that not just the American, and I do believe that there are so many reasons that the American lost the war in Vietnam, but to us, I think we just lost the battle, and because the war is still going on, we still struggle for freedom and democracy today, and the South people, and now even the North people, start to realize that. And recently, here you probably heard in the news, there were very few young people. There's some lawyers that the youngest at like 27 years old really stand up and fighting for the democracy and human rights in Vietnam. The priests spent in and out of the jail for 20-some years, just want to speed up for their religious freedom. So the fighting is still going on, so the war is not over yet. Yes, we lost the battle in 1975.
When you say we, what do you mean by we lost the battle?
The Vietnamese and the American. And I don't think that it was, to me, honestly, I don't think the American lost the war. I mean, we just planned that way. That's what I do believe.
Have you ever been to the Vietnam Wall in Washington, D.C.?
No, I had never had a chance.
Is that something you might want to do sometime?
Yes, it's in my agenda sometime. Yeah.
Now, you're married, you have kids?
Yes, married, met my wife in Camp Anderton, that's the first refugee camp that I was in. And we have 4 children, 4 daughters. The youngest one is in senior year of ASU.
Do you think it's important that the Vietnamese people learn about Vietnam and what happened there during the war?
You mean the Vietnamese, the second generation here, or?
Like your kids, people like that. Do you think it's important?
Yes.
And those living over in the country?
Yes, I do think that it's very important for them to know why we're here, and the people in Vietnam, they do need to know, but because they, one sad thing is when the communists took over, that we realized, or a few times back in Vietnam, we realized that to younger generation, they thought the Vietnam history started when the communists took control of Vietnam, meaning they're very badly, even the college kids don't know most of the famous names that who fought and maintained the country for 5,000 years. So it is, yes, it, a part of history should be tell the way it is.
What does freedom mean to you, SINH, and maybe the price of freedom? What could you say about that?
I think that during the 75 to 89, 2 million Vietnamese already speak for the all Vietnamese about the price of freedom. Half of that was killed during their fled for their life. And some of them, I mean, most of them know that their chances dead more than alive when leaving that country, because when they leave the country, you know, being very heavily controlled by the communists, they have to leave the country when it's the most bad weather there can be, so they can hide from the patrol forces, and they facing more chances to get killed out there in bad seas and things. So they realize that there are chances of being dead more than alive, but they left the country anyway because the name of the freedom. So that's the value of it, and I'm with them.
How do the American Vietnam veterans act towards yourself and others like yourself that fought with them? Are they pretty proud of the fact that they fought with you too, like you are with them, and thankful for you too?
Most of the people I do associate with, yes, they are appreciate that, and they realize that they was treated wrong, and they really realize that we were treated wrong, and they say that at least they was they didn't really recognize their sacrifices, but at least they are going home, and they go back to their hometown. Unlike us, that we facing the same thing, we sacrifice for our country, for our people, but now we don't even have a home or country.
Well, this is very enlightening talking to you and listening to you and things. And so you were in the military how long then?
From September 13 of 69 till April 30th of 1975.
To the end.
Officially.
Okay. Lam Song 719.
Right.
Did you, the first part of the film the other night, did you hear those radio transmissions with the helicopters?
Yes.
Those radio transmissions come from that campaign.
And then the helicopters sounds until this day will bring my the hair in my back raise into once in a while. Yeah, sometimes sit in the office and hear the newscast, the helicopter or police helicopter maneuver outside, that it really bring back some memory, and I think it's still forever.
So that film the other night, when you heard the helicopters, it reminded you of Vietnam?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. I have some friends that lost their life in Lam Song 719, and there's a story in the Vietnamese newspapers here recently that it turned out to be the person in the news was a friend of close friend of mine. His name was Harry Dang Ngọc Huế, was commanding officers of the Special Force in Vietnam during Tet Offensive. The forces called the Black Cougar, or I think that's translation of mines, and Black Cougar. And that's one of the special forces there, and he was a commander. And later on, he was transferred to a larger division, being commander, and he was fought in Lam Son 719, and his division that lost most of the people there, and there was a whole 350 some that in his command. There was only about 50 left, including him. And he was badly wounded, so they took him as prisoner of war. But then when 1973 was they exchanged the prisoner of war, he was there at the DMZ at the Tatan River, but then they came up to him and said, you were captured in Laos, so you're actually not under our control, so we have to go give you back to Laos. So he continued to spend time in the prison until they didn't release him until like in late 80s. And during his time of the service, he was working with some advisor, the American advisor teams. And 1990, he received three $20 bills and a short note from his friend, and saying that I've been looking for you in the last 20-some years, and I finally found somebody who knows you in the prison, and they told me that you still here, and I might be able to contact you here. So two things: I can sponsor you and bring you to America, or if you decided to stay here, I will try to support you economically. But then later on, he decided to leave. The reason that that person doing that, because during the war, actually Harry Trân Ngọc Huê was saved his life, and I can't remember his name right now, but he became a two-star general in American, and he retired now. So that's how the story. The friendship between the American and the Vietnamese soldiers that's continued for many decades and until now, and they're helping each other like that.
Now you're an American citizen.
Yes.
What does the American flag mean to you?
It means a lot. That's why I'm really values that here, and when you travel abroad, you don't know how much your passport the value. If you carry an American passport, they really look up to you and really want to give you the service. So that is very proud to be a part of the country that it gave me the second birth after the war.
That other flag is a South Vietnamese flag? Or?
That's a Republic of Vietnam flag, yes.
And when you say Republic, that means South?
That's South Vietnam. That the official name of the country at that time. Remember, at that time in the book of the International, there was two Vietnam. There's the North, it would be Republic Socialist of Vietnam, and they changed so many times after that. But anyway, during that time, there were two separate countries.
And what was the name of both of them again? The North. Say the North and the South, the names of them again.
Socialist Republic of Vietnam, and that's the one that I stick in my mind right now. Yeah. And the South was a Republic of Vietnam.
And they have different flags?
Yes, they are. The North using the flag of the Communist Party that was formed in 30s, and they became the country flags afterward, and they're.
What was the dividing line in Vietnam?
In parallel 17. Yeah.
17th parallel?
17th parallel.
That's fine. That's fine. Here's another question, not about combat. What about among the Vietnamese people? Age. What does age mean to you? I mean, I think a lot of you don't want to talk about your age, but do you recognize age like the Americans, like you get 40, you get 50, oh, you're getting old, 60? Or is it all, does age matter? Does age mean?
Yes, age matter, but there's the misconceptions there. There's a different thinking about age Vietnam. people in the West lie about their age to be younger. In the Easterns, they really respect their elders. So when they get older, like 50s, like myself, instead of being 56, I probably tell them I'm 57 or 58, because they do like, in Vietnam, they do have the privilege to be older, and they are very respectful by their youngs. So age, yes, it really matters in a different way in Vietnam.
Do you consider yourself old?
No, I'm getting old, but I'm not old, and I consider old is not by age, by your mind. That's because some people like 80 years old here, he look very young and look like he's staying that young because his mind is always young. Yeah,
that's good. That's good advice.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. You guys talked about was your training. You're talking about being trained to kill and all this. Tell me just briefly about the training that you guys had that prepared you for the war that you faced there. And were you prepared to kill people?
Well, as any military, we know one thing, that to kill or to be killed. So when you got out there and somebody's shooting at you, of course you're going to shoot at them. So that is, and also as a military, it doesn't matter how low you're ranking or how high you're ranking, you always have as your superior, and you obey the order. The order is that if you go out there and you're going to take over that hill or you're going to take over that region, that's what you have to do. Shooting at your enemy, and of course when they're shooting at you, you have to shoot it back. So.
What about, you said you had a gun put to your head. Tell me what that was all about.
That's during the Tet Offensive. The communists, apparently my father was in their black book. So they came to look for my father. And I was 17 at that time. My hometown, they did not officially show up in my hometown until the 13th of January. Because I think it's not important or something like that. So my father was hiding someplace, and all the transportations, all the route to the CDs and everything's just blocked. So it's kind of isolated there. It's just like in the basket already, so they're not there. But there's no place to go. So they were just kind of within the village there, the pretty large village, and there's about 600 families there. So my father was hiding, so one day they show up, and some of them are in uniform. And the first thing they do is, during that time, because their rockets sent from one side to another, and could be from the American side, could be from the Vietnamese side, communist side, whatever. So as a civilian, we have some bunker just to hide in from that. So the first thing they do when they arrive, and they say, everybody in the bunker, and they say, no. Are you sure? Yes. So they just put the gun down there and shoot, just empty the clips there in the bunker. And then the next thing, they line up everything and say, where's your father? And I asked my mom, where's your husband? And she said, well, I haven't seen him. I don't know where he at. So she was very pregnant. She's 9 months pregnant already, my youngest sister there. So they took us to the front of the house and pointed the gun at our head, and that's my mom and I, and they say, I'll give you 30 minutes. If he's not showing up here, you are dead. So my cousin, about same age with me, a boy, came from another town to visit during the New Year. That's the cultural thing to do, to visit the family during the Tet and things like that. So he got stuck there, and my mom telling me something. We have a little piece of land growing crops that my father sometime there to have taken care of the fields there. So she just said to me, and I know where my father was and the day before, but nobody say anything. So
I did want to ask you about your father being killed, and you said to Lewis you're looking for his body. Can you describe that again and what you were doing?
Right. So after Hue was took over by the communist forces for 25 days, we finally liberated or gained back the control. And as soon as the South Vietnam and with the help with the American help liberated the city from the communist force, they all withdrew and gone back to the jungle where they are. And then we start realize that there was a mass grave, people got buried and things like that. So my father was captured during that time. So but he's not back. So there are some people that seen him, the captors summoned to a corner someplace, and so we assume that he's among those people that got killed. So my mom now just gave birth to my sister, and my older sister and I just joined the people who looking for those dead bodies. You know, that's where we spent several months looking for him.
Did you find them?
Not officially, like I say, in it, we just assume that the last graves that we found was over 503, I believe, in a spring northern.
Always stays with you, doesn't go away. Where were you?
Yeah, I would say the first 5 years here, starting from 1975, we got here. That is, it could be anything. It could be that you are being shot, you're being hanged, you're being dead body around you and things like that. Yes, it's happened every week for at least 5 years, and then it start to lessen after that. Nowadays, it's not that frequent, but once in a while, we somehow that fall back into that. It kind of flashback.
Is it like the post-traumatic stress thing, you think?
I would say that's what it is, yeah. And that's a very, and that I thought maybe I'm unique to that, but then talking to friends and things like that, everybody going through that. So it's not just me. Yeah.
Now, are you proud that you're an American and or Vietnamese? And how do I ask that question?
I am very proud to be an American, and I still proud where I came from, which is my country that I was born with in. And we are now the Vietnamese abroad. Most of them very proud of that. I would say most. I would say yes. A lot of them, they don't care. They just want to be, go on with their life and be an American and don't want to be anything associated with the bad wars and things like that. But most of the people, I guess, the majority of people that want to promote and preserve their cultures in Vietnam here while still adapting and move on with our new life and our next generations. All my kids are now, my last youngest one is on the senior year of high school in college, and all the threes already graduated.
I'm going to ask you to do one more thing, Sin, that I ask all the American veterans. Hopefully it's okay with you. And the other night at the film, they didn't show the ending. They cut it off. And at the end of my films, I always have the veteran give me a salute into the camera.
Right. From
where you're seated, when I tell you, can you give me a salute into the camera?
Sure.
Okay, right into the camera. Great, thank you. Good salute.
Thank you.